It's got like 4 or 5 scales one side. I think that's the beast. Hello and welcome to another in-session video, and as you can see it started off rather well. Now I'm up here at Linear Fisheries on Brasenose 1, and in this in-session video I'm going to cover one of the questions that undoubtedly I get asked the most across my social media, and that is how do you fish accurately and effectively at long range. Well, we've not long put those other 2 fish back. The rods are back out there, another 5 spoms over the top, and here we are. We are in to another carp. And as you can probably, or would have probably already seen, the wind today is behind me, which does make fishing at distance relatively easy. You know, if any of you guys have done it, you'll know that once the wind's off your back, it's a case of just getting the lead or the spom up in the air, and the wind will do the rest of the work. But over the course of this trip, good old British weather, it's due to change, and the wind is due to go from a tailwind to a crosswind, which is fishing at distance. In my experience, a crosswind is the worst possible wind that you can have. And what I've done is, again, rather than going to my maximum, which is what I see so many people do, the wind's behind them when they start the session, they want to fish at 120, 130 yards, the wind changes, lo and behold, they then can't get out to the spot. So what I've done is, as tempting as it is to go miles out, I've kept it nice and easy and comfortable for me anyway, and I've gone to 25 rod lengths, which is 100 yards, and I know then that when this wind comes and turns up tomorrow, which it's due to do, that no matter how strong it gets, and again it is due to get quite strong, 30-40 mile an hour gust, I'll still be able to maintain accuracy and carry on fishing the spot that I've started off fishing. So I'm going to focus on getting this one in. And then once this one's in, I think we'll run through probably the most important part of fishing at range, and that is the rods and reels and the line that I'm using. It's a pretty one, that one as well. Yeah. Well, as is the way on these types of venues, when you get it right and you get the bait in, nice and accurate, 3 rods over the top, it's quite common that you get multiple bites. Now I've just landed a nice scaly one in there. I had a bit of an occurrence on the other rod, and I'm in to another fish. So I've now got no rods in the water, but on the positive side, if this fish goes in the net, it looks like it is the biggest fish that I would have landed so far. So I'm going to focus on getting this one in. The fish are still showing out there, and what I'll do as soon as this one goes in the net, I'm going to get the 2 rods that are against the bivvy that have got fresh hook baits on them straight out there, deal with these fish, put some more bait out, and fingers crossed the session carries on the same as it started. Definitely a better fish, that one. I reckon we've skipped the dirty and we've gone to a naughty. That's about that one then. A couple of mouthfuls of bait under 40 pound. Bite number 4, fish number 4. And this is the reason that I keep coming back to Linear, and certainly why I keep fishing on Brasenose 1. And I'm always, no matter how much I go fishing, which is a lot, I'm always practicing and I'm always learning new things when fishing at range, whether that be the weather changing or different items of tackle that I'm using. I'm always coming here to perfect every last little bit, and results like this are here to be had. Not only are you going to get a few bites along the way, but fish like this could turn up. And believe it or not, there's one in here over 50 pound. There you go. Rods have been out a few hours, still got 48 hours left to go. Who knows what else this session has in store. You beauty. Right, rod's back out, more bait, see if we can get a few more. So as I mentioned, first thing that I was going to show you is the setup that I'm using here on Brasenose one, and indeed the setup that I use to fish at distance comfortably. Now first things first is the rod. The rod is a very, very important piece of kit. If you come into a place like Brasenose one, or you are looking to fish at distance, if you've got a 2 3/4, a 3, or even a 3 1/4 pound test curve rod, yes, you can still cast a fair distance with these, but if the weather changes, you just haven't got the backbone in them rods to be able to regularly and consistently be able to get the distance. So the rods that I'm using are 12 foot, 3 3/4 pound test curve X5 S's. Even though they are a 3 3/4 pound test curve rod, they've got a lovely playing action, as well as being able to chuck up to a 4.5 ounce lead, which is probably the biggest lead that I would use, certainly here fishing in the UK. Now onto that, you've got your reel. Now I've got Big Pit 12,000 XC reels. They've got a slow oscillation, the line lay is absolutely phenomenal, and all of these little things definitely aid in getting those few extra yards. Not necessarily when the weather's perfect like what it is here with the wind behind you, but if the wind changes and it starts to blow in your face, there's nothing worse than having a couple of little things in your setup that might prevent you from getting those couple of extra yards and being able to maintain consistency when it comes to getting out onto your spot. Now one of the things as well that you'll notice is the line that I'm using on my reels. Now every time I put a photograph up of this, or I put something on my socials about this, everybody is so quick to say, why on earth are you using orange line? All you're going to do is spook the fish. Now I have done a lot of fishing out on the continent. I've done a lot of fishing in general over my years, and I can't believe that I haven't used orange line before, because let me tell you, it is a massive, massive game changer. Now I've done a lot of fishing abroad, certainly in Croatia the past couple of years, and the foreign guys, you will very, very rarely see them spooled up with any other colour line bar orange. Now the reason for this is because it is so visual. Now when you're fishing at long range, and you'll know this because you're all carp anglers, you get a bite at night and you struggle to see where it's going. With this orange line, it is like wearing a high-vis jacket. You can see exactly where the fish is going. It makes it easy to control, certainly under the rod tip when the fish may be kiting into someone else's peg. You can see exactly where it is going. Now, a lot of people say, well, surely the orange line is going to spook the fish. The hook bait that I'm asking them to pick up 9 times out of 10 is bright orange. Do I think it spooks the fish? Absolutely not. Do I think it helps me fish at distance? 100%. It makes everything so much easier. Now I'm not saying that by fishing green and brown mono out at distance, you ain't gonna have the same results, because you are. But in terms of making it easy, and this is a fish, or this is a style of fishing, should I say, that I do a lot of. And what I want to do is I want to make sure it is as easy as possible, because when you're fishing at long distance, it can be very, very hard at times, certainly when the wind picks up. And not only that as well, it can be very, very hard at night. And this line, let me tell you, comes into its own at night. It is extremely bright, it's almost translucent on the spool. And what it does is it saves you having to dip your tips, look where your rods might be going. Provided you've got one rod left out on the spot, it puts a nice bright orange line direct to the spot, and it enables me to be able to put my other rods out without any problems at all. So do I think the orange line makes a difference? It isn't going to make any difference to spooking fish. It isn't going to spook any fish. The fish that I'm fishing for are sat behind where I'm fishing, and the first thing that they're going to come into contact with is the braided leader, the submerged leader, or the hook link. Do I think it makes a difference in terms of how easy it is to fish at distance? Absolutely. If you haven't tried orange line, I strongly recommend it, because if you're going to do a lot of distance fishing, it will make your fishing a lot easier. And another thing that you'll notice as well is my bobbins are right up tight as well. Now, fishing at distance, you don't want to be fishing any slack line. if you're fishing slackline and you're peeling any sort of slack off, there's so much tow, certainly in big lakes like Brasenose 1, that you start peeling off line. Before you know it, you're casting at, say, the tree that you're aiming at, but your lines are aiming 2 or 3 foot to the right hand side. Now this can cause a massive problem, certainly when you come to rechucking at night, because you might be fooled by thinking that the line that you're casting down is where your rigs are, but in reality your rigs are 5 or 6 foot to the left, and that can be the difference between catching and not catching. So I've got nice heavy bobbins, nice and tight. The buzzers are on maximum sensitivity, and this type of fishing, you're not looking for a screaming run. There's a lot of stretching like mono, and all you're going to get is up to the top. You're going to get a couple of beeps, bang, you can have yourself a fish. 80 shot. Oh. Well, it's about an hour now before last light, and I am in again. What I'm going to do, and what I always do, certainly when fishing at range, is making sure that all these rods go back out, bang on before it gets dark. But for now, I'm going to focus on getting this one in, like I say, about an hour I suppose before it gets dark. So whatever happens to this one, whether I land it or he decides that he doesn't want a photograph taken, I am going to bring the other 2 rods in, reclip them up, back out onto the spot, 10 more spawns, and we should be set for the night. Kicking right, they just hate coming up over this shallow bit of water. Keep the rod low, boiling up, kicking up water from a long way down. Here we go, that's a good one. Another one. That's another good fish and all, to be fair, isn't it? That'll do, that'll do. Cool, I'll tell you what, mate, that is a proper good one. Mate, that is a proper big one. If that other one wasn't a 40, this is a close one. Like the size of this, I think that's the beast. It's got like 4 or 5 scales one side. Oh my God. I don't even know what to say. Right, this film is still on distance fishing, but it was going to be an in-session about my fishing on Brasenose 1. Now, the reason why I've come and fished Brasenose 1, and I fish it a lot, is because one of the fish I've not caught in there is actually the biggest fish. And I have a really funny feeling that it is in here. Look at the size of this thing. The beast of Brasenose. I am 99% sure it is that fish. I've already caught one ounces short of 40 pounds a day, and this surpasses that. I don't know what to, look at the size of that, look. It's got like a half lin on one. Look at that, it's it. I don't believe it. We're not allowed to swear on film. Look how big that is. Look at that, look at the size of that. Mate. Right, we're losing light now. We've got to get, it's part of a double take as well. We're losing light, we've got to get it out. Right, we're gonna get everything ready and prepared. Get a sling in. Cars are going past, we're gonna get it out. Unbelievable, absolutely. I don't even know what to say. Right. Right, well all the slings zeroed and I've had to call the guy next door, he's going to help me weigh it. It's heavy. Ready?
Go on, mate.
Oh, it's over.
What are you saying?
50. You alright? It's heavy. 51.12. Yes! Wow. 50 pounder. Right, a few bank shots in the water. Don't get no better than that, does it? I'm going to struggle to lift this. Well, here we go. The one I wanted, the beast of Brasenose. 51 pound, 12 ounces, part of a double take. There's not really a lot more I can say, is there? Look at that, what an impressive carp. I don't know what to say, there is nothing to say. That's my winter target, complete. Oh wow. Right, a few pictures, we'll get it back. What a phenomenal carp. 51 pound, 12 ounces. Look at that then, 51.12 of Brasenose 1 mirror. I still don't know what to say. Things like this don't happen every day of the week. Look at that. Whew, you beast. It is the beast. Oh then. Unreal. Look at the size of that. 51.12. Off you go make someone else's year. Yes! Well, this one here, this was actually the first one of the double take, but I chose to do the big one first. Big fish, a lot of stress on it, get it back as quick as possible. But I'll tell you what, this one ain't bad either. A little over 37 pound. I don't know what to say really. 6 fish now, a 37, a 39, or just under 40, and a 51. First evening. I don't know, we're going into the night. Who knows what else is going to happen. Obviously I'm not going to catch the biggest in the lake because I've just caught it, but if Carlsberg made filming sessions. Brasenose 1, the best day ticket fishing, big day ticket fishing, big carp day ticket fishing that the UK has to offer. Look at that, 37 pound, job's a good one. Where's the cherry coke at? When it comes to fishing distance, it is key that the setup that you're using is as anti-tangle as possible. Now, whenever I'm fishing distance, unless I'm fishing with a solid bag, I won't attach any other form of PVA bag to my rig, whether that be a little mesh bag or a little nugget. I'll literally just fish a single hook bait to make sure that every time I let go of that cast, the lead and the rig is making its way out to the spot. And obviously, by not attaching anything to the rig, I want to make sure it is as anti-tangle as possible. So first things first, I'm fishing with a braided shock leader, and on the end of that, I'm using a ready tied submerged leader, and that is down to a leg clip setup. Now, I favour the leg clip setup over any other setup. I don't know why, but for me, I don't ever get any problems with it. I don't get any tangles with it, and it enables me to change leads very, very quickly. And where I'm fishing here on Brasenose 1 today, I'm not dropping the lead. I'm not looking to drop the lead, so I'm pushing the tail rubber on a fair way, but if that fish was to come into contact with any snag, the lead would very, very easily be able to eject, and then you're fishing safely and effectively. I've got a 4 ounce lead on there, which is a nice, decent, big lead. Even though the wind's behind, I could get away with a lighter lead, but I'm using a big lead because it just tows the line a lot easier, and it makes sure that I'm hitting the clip 100% of the time. And then down onto the rig. Now, I still use a relatively long rig, and the reason that I use a long rig is because I'm a firm believer that if you give them enough rope, they're going to hang themselves. And I know with the way that I set this up that this is hardly ever going to tangle. So I've got about 8 to 10 inches of 19 pound illusion fish D-rig style to a nice big size 4 hook, which is another key thing when fishing at distance. You're asking a lot of your setup, you're asking a lot of the mechanics of the rig to land a fish from such a long way out. Now, if I'm hooking a fish at 100, 120, 150 yards, and it's got a tiny size 6, a size 8, or even a size 10 in its mouth, all the way in, I'm going to be worrying about that hook coming out. And the last thing that I want to be worrying about when I'm playing a fish, don't know what you're going to hook, certainly in a place like Brasenose, and you've got a 50 pounder at the net and it hook pulls because you've got a small hook on, you're never going to forgive yourself. So I've got a nice big size 4 hook, and that is the presentation that's done 50% of the bites, a little piece of foam, a few maggots and a couple of worms. And this one here has done the other 50% of the bites. And that is a small whittled down krill wafter with a tiny bit of plastic cord. And another thing as well when you're fishing at distance is you need to make sure your hook bait is secured properly. And what I mean by that is make sure you've got a nice big blob, not cutting the tag ends too short and having a tiny little blob. The rig is going to be going through a lot of force as it goes through the air, and it can easily rip the hook bait off when it hits the water. The same as when you're attaching your natural baits on top of the foam. Make sure you do 5 to 6 overhand knots and really pull them down tightly and secure them, because the last thing that you want to be doing is chucking your rods out, hitting the clip and then sitting there worrying if your hook baits have come off or not. Well, a bit of nighttime action. Now this is where this orange line really comes into its own. Normally, when you're playing a fish under the tip like I am now, you're sort of squinting under the head torch light to try and see what direction it's gone in. This orange line, you can literally shine your head torch onto the tip of the rod and you can see exactly where the fish is. Now, when you're fishing at distance, I can't even begin to explain the difference it makes and how much easier it is in controlling where the fish is. And not only that as well, I've actually had a double take. I've got one in the net that's another decent fish. But the one rod that I've got left out is a direct, tight, straight line to where I'm fishing, and it makes casting at night very easy, because what I've done is I've pulled the rods right back from the front of the swim, so just the tip is overhanging. And what I do is I almost stand over the rods when I go to do a rechuck, and I can cast straight down the direction of that tight line. And because it's orange, it is so easy to see, and there's none of this lifting the tips up and down to try and see where the line is. It's very easy to see, and it just makes recasting at night back onto the spot very easy. This fish is kicking right off. He's starting to wipe his rods out. I can soon walk the fish back. I'd rather go into his peg and land it. Well, that fish kited into matey's peg next door, but I got it in. And it was probably mid-upper 20, I suppose, but caused a bit of a drama. So I just put it straight back. But again, another mid-upper 20. That one in the net is another good one. And like I was saying before, I've got one rod left out. And with that one rod that's left out, that gives me a nice tight direct line to the middle of the spot. Just the middle rod what's left. That's going to make getting them back out at night relatively easy. So I'm going to clip them back up, fresh hook baits, back out there. The night shift started. Number 10 in the net. It's definitely my turn to have dinner now. I've decided, just as it starts to chuck it down, lower the old cord down. Off you go, pal. That's it, my turn for tea now. No rods left. Oh. Here we go then. This was the first bite of the two that I've had since it's got dark. 35 pound and 4 ounces. The other one, 26, 28 pound. And I know that I've just had the biggest fish in the lake a couple of hours ago, but catching carp like this, of this size, I'm going to be staying awake all night, and I hope that the action continues. Like I say, fishing with that orange line makes fishing at night so much easier. And fingers crossed, if I can keep getting the bait out there, keep getting the rigs on the spot, keep catching a few more carp. There we go, 35, a 37, a 39, and a 51, and we haven't even done a night yet. Lovely times. It made a splash That one also went splash. It's actually hitting fish on the way down. I've got the buzzer on. It's ripping. There we go. Thought I was hitting them on the way down. Just shows though, doesn't it? You keep getting them rods back in the same spot. Bait over the top. Don't take long for them to start going again. Beautiful British weather. Oh, it's a common. Not a bad size common that. I'll tell you, the average size of fish has been so good. Whew. Still the bites come. That's a good common, to be fair. A really good common. Two up in the net now. Well, good morning. Now, last night the weather took a drastic turn for the worst. The weather forecast and what actually come through was nothing like what it said it was going to be. It was absolutely horrendous. And about 9:30, 10 o'clock, I actually called it a night and I wound the rods in. But I did end the night on a nice brace of 30 pounders, a 31 pound common and a really nice scaly 31 pound linear as well. So it was a very good end to a fantastic day yesterday. And as much as I would have liked to have carried on fishing throughout the night, I am here for a couple of days. So I thought, get them in, have a good night's kip, freshen everything up, and I've put the rods out. They've been out about an hour now. Now, last night we had a lot of rain. This morning I haven't seen any fish, but the rods are back out there on the spot. I've put another 10 or 12 big spoms over the top. So it's just a case now of hoping that the action today carries on like it left off yesterday. And it seems to be that I've had 11 fish now. 5 of them have been over 30 pound and one of them was obviously the big one at 50 pounds. So there is a large proportion of the big carp sat out in front of me, judging by what normally happens when I fished Brasenose 1 in the past. Now I know I've caught the big one, but there is still so many other big fish in here to catch. The weather's perfect, the wind swung right off my back. It's going to make fishing nice and easy. Let's hope the day carries on how it ended yesterday. Okay, so I'm just going to re-shut the rods. I haven't actually had another bite since I put the rods out this morning, which isn't too uncommon on Brasenose 1. It's a large expanse of water. The fish could very easily move away, but sometimes I find by making a fresh bit of noise, repositioning the rigs, that can bring on a bite. Now, by no means am I a casting expert, but there are a couple of little things that I do that ensure that I'm fishing as accurately as possible. Now, again, when you're fishing at any distance really, but certainly at long distance, it is very hard to decipher exactly how tight you are fishing. But one of the things that I do see a lot of anglers doing is when they're putting their rods out, they're casting from various points in their swim. Now, one thing that I've always done and I've always stood by is I will always stand in exactly the same position when I'm casting, and I will always hold the rod in exactly the same position when I'm hitting the clip. Now, does this make a massive difference? I don't know, but what I do know is that if you cast from the same place and you hit the clip with the rod in the same place, effectively your rods are going to be going as tight as what they possibly can be. So I'm in position now to do a nice simple overhead chuck out onto the spot, and like I say, I am no casting expert, I'm all self-taught, but by standing in the same area, making sure that your feet are nice and solid on the ground. I've got a relatively long drop down to the spigot, casting glove as well, again an essential piece of kit, especially when you're fishing with braided shock leaders. If that clutch slips or you let go of the cast too late, you're going to be in A&E and you're going to have the end of your finger stitched back on. So I'm going to line myself up to where I want to go, open the bail arm, one final check of the clutch, we don't want any slippages there. I'm aiming directly at where I want to be, and I'm not going to do this fast, I'm going to do it as a nice slow single movement. The rod's going to go behind my head, My arms are going to extend as high as they possibly can. And another key element when you're casting distance is the hand that holds the butt of the rod. Almost treat it like you're punching yourself in the stomach, because the harder you pull the butt of the rod, the faster the tip's going to go, the faster the lead's going to go, and you're going to be able to hit the clip with ease every single time. So here we go. Here goes nothing, as they say. Over my head, nice and high on the arms, pull in, out we go. On the clip, down, feel it down, rod in the same position, on the bottom, absolutely bang on. Full free go like that, and I can get some bait over the top. Fingers crossed we can get another carp. Well, that's about that one then. It's been a little over 24 hours since I had my last bite. But another thing worth noting as well is persevering with the spot that you found and that you've caught fish from. I know that the spot that I found had obviously done me those 11 bites in quick succession, and it wasn't a case of chasing the fish. I had seen a couple of fish go further. I could have tried bags, but always have faith in what you're doing. Know that you're fishing accurately, know that you're baiting where your rigs are, and sure enough, the fish will soon find it and they'll come back. Just as this lovely 34-pound common proves, this is now my 6th fish over 30 with the big one over 50. Unreal fishing in mega conditions on Brasenose 1. I'm just about to get some more bait out after having another good night last night. I had a common just over 34 pound, another one around sort of 25, 26 pound, as well as a few smaller ones as well. Now the days haven't been mega prolific apart from the first day, but that doesn't still mean that I can't try. Now before I start putting bait, I'm just going to quickly run you through the spodding setup that I'm using, because I've got something on the reel that is probably slightly different to what a lot of certainly the UK anglers will have seen anybody else do before. Now the rod itself is a designated spom rod. It's a nice beefy rod with a very, very quick recovering tip. Now that helps massively, because when you're chucking out, the last thing you want is your rod to be like that, because what can that happen there and what that can cause is, as the leader knot goes through the eyes of the rod, it can frap up and you can have crack off. So it's very, very important you have a nice beefy rod with a very, very fast recovering tip. I've got exactly the same reel as what I'm using on my fishing rods, 12,000 XC, and the braid that I've got loaded onto here is a designated spom braid. It's very, very thin diameter and it makes fishing at range easy. And not only that as well, when you're fishing in a crosswind, because you're using a thin braid, it cuts through the wind a lot easier, and it means that your spom isn't dragging as much as what it would be if you were using maybe a thicker braid or a mono. And then I've got a shock leader, but what I have got between the braided reel line and the shock leader, I've got 10 feet of mono. Now that mono is the same distance casting orange mono as what I'm using on my fishing reels. Now I've learnt this from fishing abroad, and I'd never thought of it before, but when you're fishing at long range, you know, we've all been there, you get into a rhythm of casting, but every now and again you let a cast go and it's like, that could have gone an extra 20 yards. Now, by fishing this, because you're fishing with such a thin braid and you're fishing with a braided shock leader, what can happen, and you know, it's happened to me and I'm sure it's happened to a lot of you guys as well, is when you hit the clip, the weakest part is obviously your leader knot. But by having this small piece of mono between your reel line and your leader, it creates sort of a stretchy buffer, if you like. So if you do hit the clip unexpectedly and it hits the clip very, very hard, you're not going to get any problems. The mono is going to take the cushion of the cast and you ain't going to have any dramas, and you're not going to be leaving any spoms out in the lake. So that's the setup that I'm using. Obviously I've got my casting glove. Whenever you're fishing with braid or fishing at distance, you always have to make sure that your finger is protected. And I've just got a midi X spom, which is the perfect size for fishing distance. They're about 4.5 ounces when loaded up, and for me that's the perfect casting weight. So I'm just going to load up now and start putting a few spoms of bait out. Right, so that's loaded. Time to get them out there, shall we? It's a nice easy chuck with the wind off my back, that's for sure. Rod behind, hit the clip, down. The mix that I'm using is a mix that I use absolutely everywhere. Hemp, sweet corn, chopped boilies, and I've added a little bit of chopped worm in as well. Now what you would have seen as well is inside the bucket I haven't made a lot of bait up. Now whenever I'm fishing with naturals, the last thing that you want to be doing is making a full bucket of bait up, loading it to the hilt with all your natural bait in it. It's not cheap. Putting the lid on it and leaving it at the front of the swim to bake and suffocate in the bucket. Basically, natural bait is the best bait in the world if it's fresh, but if it goes rotten, it can be a massive, massive fish repellent. And the reason as well why I carry on using the same mix is it works time and time and time again. And fishing at distance as well, there's a couple of other things to consider. First of all, the weight of the bait that you're using. If you was putting dry pellets and a few boilers in, the weight is not going to be able to pull the line at any sort of force to be able to get your spom to where you're going. And a big lake like Brasenose 1, when the wind starts pulling across, you get undertow. With undertow, your bait's dragging. If you're using light bait, it just can pull it left, it can pull it right, and before you know it, you're not actually putting any bait where your rigs are. So by using a nice heavy mix, making sure you hit the clip every time, I know that every one of these spoms that hits the spot, the bait is going down directly over where I'm fishing, and irrespective of what the weather does, I've always got bait on top of my rigs and I've always got a chance of getting some bites. I've got about 15 or 20 to put out now. Fingers crossed I can nick a bite in the day before the end of the session, but if not, it's been an absolutely phenomenal session. A few hours to go, you never know what's around the corner. Well, that's it. The gear is in the van and I am packed away. And to be honest with you, I'm still finding it hard to put into words what has happened over the past couple of days. Much like yesterday, the daytime has just been dire. The weather is due to come in pretty rough in the next couple of hours, which is why I've packed up now and called it early. But yeah, just hard to put into words what's happened. You know, I've fished these places for years and years and years, and never ever in my wildest dreams did I expect to just turn up. And you know, we have just turned up on a bit of a whim. I haven't fished here for 10 or 11 months, and to catch the big one. I mean, and not only just catch the big one at over 50 pound, I had a 39.14, a 37, a 35, a 34, 3 other fish over 30 pound. And it just shows that if you're fishing accurately, comfortably, baiting right at range, these results are there to be had. And I hope that from watching this video you can pick up a few little bits and pieces, and next time you go out on the bank and you fish at distance, it just increases your confidence that little bit more, that you too can put into practice what you've seen and get a few bites. And just remember, orange line does work. Cheers.